Well, now I know where I'm at. I'm right on the ridge overlooking the Bodie Road, not too far from Fletcher. That's California in the distance. That's on the other side of Lucky Boy Pass, Quarry Peak. East Walker River is in there. So I'm right up on the high ridge. Hawthorne, Nevada, the world's largest ammunition depot. Home sweet home. This is the general area where we were today. Here's Reno, Lake Tahoe. Here's Mineral County. There's Hawthorne, Nevada. Here's Highway 359 right here that ties into California 167. There's Mono Lake. We're going to go up this road here to the crest in Powell Canyon. Kelly had to work that day, so I drove by myself from Hawthorne on Nevada 359 heading south. This is a 2-lane paved highway in good shape, right here to Powell Canyon. This Powell Canyon road turns into a lot of little switchbacks. It's mostly like a little Jeep road, really, and it goes up in elevation to about its halfway point, and then it goes down in elevation. It drops down on this side over here. Now, I went up about halfway to get a good view of the neighboring valleys and the higher peaks in the area, such as Quarry Peak, which you can see from there, and also the Fletcher stage stop can be seen from there. Now, this is also known as the Lucky Boy Pass, where this Bodie Road goes, and also it's very close to the historic ghost town of Aurora, which at one time was considered in California, but it's actually in Nevada. You can see where the state line is right there between California and Nevada. But this little road here, this Powell Canyon, it's interesting because a lot of these little draws and dry washes that normally don't have any water often will get, usually once a year, a good monsoon rain. So all the rain comes out in the desert all at once. And there's 7 to 8 little draws that actually all connect into this canyon. By the time it gets down by the road, it's a big roaring torrent. And it's a very broad floodplain in here, and it'll move boulders and timbers and all kinds of things. And it usually covers the road with a foot or two, maybe even more sometimes, of sand and boulders and debris and so forth. And usually the road crew has to clean that up, at least usually once a year. But anyway, we went up here to the top and looked around and got some good views and went scouting around, and then had a wild ride coming back down where my brakes heated up pretty good and had to stop and let them cool off.
Here's the pie that I made you, Douglas.
Oh man, it looks wonderful, Kelly. Woo, look at that. You got a little cherry on top. Mmm. Mmm. I'll wash this down with the beer. Mmm. 10.
For some reason, Doug likes beer with his cherry pie.
There it is, everybody. It is super, super duper delicious. Look at all those cherries in there. There we go. I put some strawberries with the leftovers, plus I didn't want to waste that vanilla ice cream. I'm at the rest stop and park in Hawthorne, Nevada, and right across the street is the Mineral County Museum. And my friend Kelly works over here. She's the curator. And I'm gonna see if she has any information about that Powell Mountain area. Hi, Kelly. I was wondering if you had any information about that Powell Mountain area.
Yeah, I do. Let's go take a look.
So Kelly, I know that A. Powell is the businessman in the mining industry locally that Powell Mountain is named after. And that's the canyon that I went up. And I noticed you found a real interesting map you're gonna show us here.
Okay, yeah. Okay, now this is a map. It is a early transportation routes from Carson City to Wadsworth to Columbus. Now, this is the only map that I have of it, and it's very difficult to see. But what Doug did is he started right in here on the highway and went up Powell Canyon, right in through here. Now, if he had kept going, but he did get up to a mountain and he could see Fletcher, which is right over here. And Aurora is right over here, and so is 9 Mile House. But this is part of the stage route going to Aurora. But he got up to about right in here. Okay, here's an ad for Awa Powell's Livery and Feed and Stable. Now, that was in Powell Canyon, and you can see right here where the east side of Powell Mountain and Powell Station was, and that's what it's named after, is him.
1868. Here's a picture of one of the houses at the Fletcher Station stage stop that you can see from up on the top of where I was on Powell Mountain.
This is the old barn at Fletcher Station that it was right next to the house at one time. And if you go back to some of Doug's videos, you'll see a video he did on Fletcher Station. It's a very pretty area.
So here's a hit record by Capitol Record, and it's from Curly Fletcher, and he used to be a cowboy that pretty much grew up at the Fletcher Station there. It's called Nobody's Fool, and he had a pretty big hit with that. You can find that on the internet, Nobody's Fool. And then look over here, there's some of the artwork from the area.
Okay, now Nevada Ben painted these pictures, but what he did is he painted pictures of Curly Fletcher's songs.
Glad you could all join me today, everybody. Today we're really going off the beaten path to a place that's rarely visited, and it's part of the Humboldt-Toyabe National Forest. It's 111,000 acres, and it is a wild horse preserve. It's called a wild horse territory. And the tallest mountain in this territory is Powell Mountain, which is 9,524 feet above sea level. I think they manage this territory for 29 wild horses. They shoot for 29, and that's the carrying capacity for all that land for the horses. I want to point out something very interesting from the truck window, and that is this field of debris. This is a flash flood area, and you can see where it's pushed all the sand and boulders and gravel, and it'll push it down onto the paved highway down there. And every year the road department has their hands full with that, moving that dirt around. It usually does cover the road. We get heavy rains usually once or twice in the summertime. So it's an ongoing thing that's just part of the territory here. Look at this big lizard coming by. There he goes. In the distance is Highway 359, and that Nevada highway is right adjacent to Whiskey Flats. There's a ranch across the way there, see it? Where it has the irrigated fields. Look how big this field is, where the flash floods come through in the summertime and our monsoons. Look at the size of these boulders that the water moves. These came out of the mountains. Look at that big granite boulder. It's the power of water. That water in a flash flood or heavy summer downpour just comes roaring down here. It brings with it these boulders, pine cones, branches, brush, logs. Just amazing. But it makes a lot of work for the road department. Look at the size of that. That big boulder came from out of those mountains. You can see my truck in the distance. It's right on the other side of this wash. That's how wide it is. You don't want to be standing here when there's a flash flood in the summertime. Ski flats in the distance. You can see how wide this field of debris and boulders and sand washed through here and logs. That's what happens when that water comes roaring out of the mountains, comes into this valley. Every summer, Kelly and I take this route quite frequently, and usually once or twice a year there's a rain event where the soil has been washed on the road. And this area right here by Powell Canyon has always been a problem spot. It's just the natural spot where it drains. And like I said, luckily we've got a really good road crew and they really do a good job making sure the road's open, but it does take a little while. They have their hands full when it happens, but they keep an eye on it, and we're very fortunate for that. Now I'm right in the center of this big arroyo wash, if you will. Let's see how big it is. Look at that. Look at the stones. Those have traveled a long way. Those aren't just little rocks, they're big boulders, they're granite. That's the debris field. That's one wide arroyo wash or draw, whatever you'd want to call it, when those flash floods come zooming through here with a lot of power. Nature is so persistent. Look how small this little plant is, blooming. And look where it lives. Did you hear that explosion in the distance? That's where they dispose of old ordnance. It's not too far from here. And they have a pit where they blow it up and safely get rid of it. Got some good people working on that, taking care of that. Look at the debris field. It's like dried flotsam and jetsam, you know, just rafts and rafts of the wood that come out of the mountains. You can see it. It's like a layer. And find some interesting pieces of wood. I finally got a little tread on my tires, which is nice for a change. They said I could get another 5,000 to 7,000 miles off these old ones in the back. This still got some pretty good tread. We're heading up into Powell Canyon. The road's in fairly good shape. It's a beautiful day, not too hot. Looks like there's a sign up here. Let's see. Right in Powell Canyon. Powell Canyon, keep it clean. Agree with that. You can see how close that arroyo is. Right on the side there. That's where the flash floods zip through in that Powell Canyon. I can even hear my voice echoing a little bit from the sides. It's so steep. That's where a side arroyo comes in to the main channel. Kind of taking it easy in here. This is a little highway truck. It's not an off-road truck. It's got pretty good clearance on it though. Two-wheel drive. It doesn't have off-road tires on it though. It's got good tires in the front and fair tires on the back. So as long as the road is fairly decent, I'll be all right. Starting to get a little rough right in there. Here's a second wash that empties out into the canyon. Look at some of the big boulders there. Goodness. Imagine this is super dangerous in a downpour. Got a pretty big drop off over there. Looks like about 40 or 50 feet. There's the canyon. Here's a third wash that ties into it. So let's get a lot of water all at once. Notice how high above the canyon we are now. And just imagine, if you will, the power of that water when it's roaring down here. Got to keep on my toes. There's been a couple big boulders that I've thought about just getting out and moving them, but the truck was able to go over a couple of the bigger rocks with no problem. Like I said, this truck is not raised up at all. Looks like we're gonna go right across that wash. There's another little tributary that dumps into this canyon. Look at the boulders. Goodness. We're right in the stream bed right now. There goes a little chipmunk. It's hard to see it, but in the desert we have these little chipmunks that have a lot of, they're really light colored, but they're super fast. They have to be in the desert, and you don't really get a good look at them. I just saw one in the brush. There's Powell Mountain in the distance, just past this other wash. That's not a road down there. That's actually another wash that ties into the canyon. That's one tall mountain up in there. Here's a side road that breaks off to the north. It's well marked. It's got the road number on it. And coming from somebody who's basically from the compass generation, handheld compass generation, I see that there's a thing you can scan on your phone and you can download a map. It looks like you have to pay for it. Interesting. The road kind of smooths out in this section, past that spur. Not bad at all. I think the thing that makes an area like this so precious is it may not be, you know, oceanfront property right on the beach or right on a nice alpine lake, but there's a lot of open space, a lot of privacy, and it's wilderness. And I haven't seen a single other person out here. In today's world, that's actually very precious, especially for people from some of the more crowded places in Europe and maybe on the east coast of North America. And so it's nice to find places that are still wide open and unspoiled, where you can just get a little peace and quiet. And that's what the beauty is of this. And there is a lot of wildlife, and it has its own special beauty. This area has the single leaf pinyon pine, and it's a little bit different than the Utah juniper, which it grows amongst. The main thing being that you can eat the pine seeds in there, the pinyon pine seeds. We collected some last fall. They were delicious. I've got a video on how to process them, and but that's the single leaf pinyon pine. There's the tree. One tough tree, puts out a lot of food. Here's what the plant community looks like. This area also has mule deer in it, and it has antelope, the mountain lion, and lots of jackrabbits. All the pine cones on the road. Like I said, you can get some good food off of those. Let's see, I think I'm gonna move this rock out of the way. Got that rock out of the way. That small one like this right there, that's not a problem. Put that right underneath the truck. Just don't want to take any chances when you're so far out. At one time I had a little Toyota Corolla. It was the value edition. It had a 5-speed in there and a little 4-cylinder, but it was front wheel drive. I took it on all kinds of tough Jeep roads in Montana. I never got stuck, not even once. I never put the wheels in a ditch or anything. But I would scamper around like a cat real slow. Now here's another fairly good sized rock. I think I just go right over that one. Got enough clearance. Just got to make sure you do. You're going to take the oil pan right off and all your oil will fall out and there goes your engine. That's how it goes. See the pine cones on the side. Those are so delicious. Those pinyon pines. The pine nuts. Can't make it over that rock there, so I'm gonna pick it up and get it out of the way. It's too narrow to turn around right now, so I'll just stay on it and see if I can get through it or find a place to turn around. Getting a little sketchy now. In case you were wondering how the wild horses got in this area, what happened was there was Amos Green. Amos Green lived down in Tweedy Meadows. Tweedy Meadows is in southern Nevada, kind of by the Amargosa Valley down in there. And in 1855, he lost some of his horses up in here. And then the other source was Perry Morgan. Now, Perry Morgan, he owned the Flying M Ranch at that time. It must have been prior to 1917 because the United States got involved in World War I in 1917. And Perry decided to volunteer and join the Army. And when he joined the Army, he let his horses loose. That was in 1917. Of course, the Flying M Ranch is a very famous ranch. And I did a whole video on that, Paris Hilton and her dad and so forth. And you can see that if you're interested in that. But that's one of the sources for the horses. And Perry used to come in every so often and, well, he would actually put a stud out with them. And then I think he would round up some of the horses over the years in the 1930s. And then what happened was in 1971, when the Wild Free Roaming Horse and Burro Act passed, there was, I think, 23 horses on here. And then they figured out over the years it's got a carrying capacity for about 2930. So it's a lot of acres. 111,000 acres is a pretty big spread. But as you can see, it's rugged country. And some of these places are a little bit, I think, too steep almost for the horses. They kind of like it a little bit flatter. But there's plenty of that around here, too. We're just on a steep little road going up the side of the mountain. Down across the distance, way over there, is Whiskey Flats in between the two mountain ranges. Gives you an idea where we're at now. There's the pinyon pine. You can see all the pine cones now. Those pine cones are open. The seeds have all been picked off by the birds or fallen out. But if you come up here in the fall, guarantee there'll be if we get a good year, there'll be a lot of pine nuts, and those are delicious. I love those. Apparently they did some genetic testing on the horses up here, and they came to the conclusion it's mostly a gated breed of horses, like the Tennessee walking horse and so forth. So that's the type of horses that the horses that live up here are descended from, that type of a horse. I brought my mountain bicycle just in case I might need it. I've got the hood popped. I took a little break. She's not running hot or anything, but I just baby her. And she got a V6 on there. Like I said, 32 years old. She's got 262,000 miles on her. So I tried to take care of her. She's taking care of me. So just go easy on her. Sometimes it's nice just to get off the beaten path and check out some of these places. Got my truck parked on the main route. That's where we came up. And this is definitely a spot where my truck can't make it through here. Not normally, it's just too soft and too rutted. Let's just walk up here. Walking's good, healthy. It's a soft, kind of a silty, dusty road surface. It doesn't hurt the feet at all. There'll be some nice views ahead. Someone's got a real pretty little boondocking spot. Come up here and park, and had a place where they have their campfire. Beautiful view. That's Corey Peak right there. East Corey Peak. On the other side, known as TV Hill, East Corey Peak. Kelly and I have been up to those. Amazing views up there. The other side of Mount Grant and that valley there is amazing. There's so many things to see, and it's so remote, and yet it's close by. It's not crowded at all. There's actually a few ranches in there. A few people live in there, a little farther back in there. If you pay attention, you can see even in some of these rugged places like where we're at, there's beautiful things to be seen. These are unusual. Real tiny little Indian paintbrush hanging out. Bright color. So we can see Corey Peak in the distance. So I can see the peak. That means if we were on the peak over there, we'd be able to see us here. There's two springs that are located in Powell Canyon. There's the lower Powell Spring and the upper Powell Spring. There's not a whole lot of water in this area. I couldn't locate those springs on Google Maps, and I couldn't locate them very clearly on the ground, but I don't think they're developed at this time, but I'm sure the water is still close to the surface. And you can bet those wild horses are experts in finding the water around here. This is a real remote area of Nevada, seldom seen. Not a whole lot of people that come up into this area, and you can see what it looks like with all the rock. You can bet your bottom dollar there's cougars in here. The only thing you'll hear in here in the daytime is an occasional airplane passing over. That's a big ancient mountain mahogany right there. I got some pinyons amongst the boulders. Let's go sneak around in here and just take a look. Probably won't see any rattlesnakes today, which is a good thing. But I'm making lots of noise because usually they can hear you. They don't want to get startled. That's when you're more likely to get into a problem with them. They just want to be left alone. Look at all the pine cones there. Because when those rattlesnakes bite you, they have to use up a lot of their venom, which they use in their hunting to take care of the rodents. Oh, look at this, some wild cactus. Got some flower buds on them. I'll have to remember where these are at. Right up in the rocks now. There's the top of the mountain. The East Walker River Hot Springs is located in the distance away in there. You have to hike into it though. There's Corey Peak, East Corey Peak, and Mount Grant is the one to the right. And just on the other side of that is Hawthorne, Nevada. But this whole area back in here, you can see how extensive it is. It's all wide open country, basically from Fletcher Station in the foreground down the bottom there, all the way pretty much to Yarrington. That's California in the distance with the snow. So quiet. I'm glad it's overcast because it's cool. You get these deserty areas, and as soon as you get a little cloud cover, it's not too bad. But as soon as the clouds move, you get the full brunt of the sun. Of course, it's not as hot here as in the Mojave Desert farther south, but hot is hot. And today it's pleasantly cool. We're not too far from Aurora in the distance. That's where Samuel Clemens, his pen name was Mark Twain, he spent some time over there. There was a big gold rush that happened over there. They thought it was in California for the longest time. Then it turned out to be in Nevada. So it caused a lot of problems, a lot of money involved there. From experience, I can tell you that mountain looks somewhat close. It'd take you a long time to get there, most of the day. I think it goes down over that ridge and then you go down, you have to go up again. It's a long way. There's just a view of a humble area of Nevada in the Pinyon Pine Forest. I can see the active mine works in the distance. Right in there. We are way in the hardscrabble tules today. I can see where the road goes along on the side there. Goes all the way down to the mine.